I got an important question from an audience member of mine. I was talking about how right now we're seeing Xbox do well. I'm going to go ahead and back up my statement, but I thought it was a very interesting comment because it's putting into light something that I've seen a lot of in the gaming community. Now, this particular statement from this audience member said, "What statistics show Xbox is doing well? COD? It sold less than it usually did. We can on SteamDB see that indie isn't selling well there, and 2025 looking better, even though their best games going to PlayStation, Doom, and The Outer Worlds 2. Now, let's go ahead and break this down because I believe very strongly that it's important that we take very, very careful measures to point out where these claims come from and what the reality looks like. So question number one, what is the first metric that I have used to conclude that Xbox is doing well? The answer is very simple in the area of games. Ladies and gentlemen, if anybody remembers, or I don't know about you, but when I came in to start talking about the gaming industry and started talking about Xbox and Game Pass and what Xbox was doing, and myself as a PC player seeing how that was unfolding, the very first pushback I got was, number one, Xbox has no games. However, that statistic has significantly changed. So if I were to judge based on what we had, say, if you followed Game Pass since around 2018, 2019, compared to now, you can tell that there's a big difference as to the service itself and as to what Xbox has in its own coffers. Fine, it paid $79 billion for it, but the statistic has changed. No longer is Xbox now subpar in terms of content delivery and content ownership to anyone. They look like they are probably going to be the biggest when it comes to owning content. So that, in my opinion, is the very first thing that we got to look at. Because you see, if you don't talk about it from that perspective, it's easy for us to basically forget. And sometimes some people who've always detracted from Xbox may not even realize that Xbox is actually making strides. Now, as to the quality of those games, I've seen some people say, we're getting a lot of quantity, but not quality. I'd say, well, hold on. Most of these games have been coming from different entities that some of you have liked before. One of them being Bethesda. And without Xbox or Microsoft's influence, a lot of these games were already in development and production when Bethesda was actually acquired in 2021. So has your perception about these games changed because Xbox now acquired Bethesda? Or is it because somebody is now looking at it from the lens of Xbox that it now feels like the good old Xbox with Xbox Game Studios cannot, in a sense, deliver as these individual studios did? I guess that's another subjective thing that can be looked into it. The second statistic that they pretty much asked about was Call of Duty. They said Call of Duty, it's not selling, it didn't sell as well. Okay. I don't know where they got that from, but let's go ahead and look at the statistics and let's look at the data. On careful examination, you can see articles upon articles talking about how Black Ops 6 was basically the best-selling video game of 2024 in the month of November, even in the month that it came out. When you look at it from the context of the entire year, it's the second best-selling game of the year, followed by EAFC. Now, how we conclude, or how this comment concluded that this game did not sell as well as the others, is interesting because there are articles that actually talk about the game meeting its milestone of over 500 million copies to date from its previous milestone. Now, what happened was people went back 2 years, which they actually said in the articles that pointed it out. And those milestones were actually somewhere around 425 million. So between 2 years, the two Call of Duty games so far have sold about 75 million units. That's what pushed that number from about 425 million to 500. So between the last Call of Duty game, I think it was Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 or something, and Black Ops 6, they've sold a combined 75 million units. Break it down however you want, and you will realize that the game basically pushed a lot of copies. Not only that, reports show that it invigorated a lot of the Game Pass mania, and for the most part, you have to look at the best player engagement that they had seen in the launch of any Call of Duty since the game's inception. So again, when I look at this comment that's questioning how I'm coming to the conclusion, I don't see where anyone can, in a sense, push against the statistic unless they are, number one, unaware, or number two, in their eyes, Xbox has to do something more extraordinary than it already has been able to accomplish. I think this is extraordinary. $75 billion invested in the right properties for gaming. I think it's extraordinary. Bringing those games to other platforms, like this person said, I think that's extraordinary, because the classic means of actually gaming has been around or centered around, oh yeah, this game is going to be an exclusive, while Xbox is breaking that paradigm. And yes, for them to make profit so that their games don't go take a big loss, no problem with that. That's what you're here for as a business. And so ideally, them bringing their games to other platforms and being able to leverage that without actually being stuck on their box, to me, is something that actually is innovative. They take the game, they change it. The final one is SteamDB numbers for Indiana Jones. You know, if you remember that comment, the SteamDB numbers are something that was cited for Indiana Jones. Now, as to this particular game, I got to tell you, I was not confident with its sales. I'm not surprised as to what the sales have been able to accomplish. To me, Indiana Jones and the demographics that like it is a very, very different demographics. I'm not going to throw boomers or Gen X or Gen Z or millennials in here, but I'm a millennial, and I can tell you that I've never watched an Indiana Jones movie ever in my life. But I can tell you one thing, though, that it was basically the inspiration for games like Tomb Raider and Uncharted, which are two of my favorite games. Having beaten the 3 reboots of Tomb Raiders and the 4 Uncharted games, including the Lost Legacy DLC that was put in place, I have a great amount of respect for the fact that this particular franchise gave birth to those others. However, the classic Indiana Jones is not something that has a lot of, airwaves. So its sales are probably, at the end of the day, not as impressive. Mediocre, I would say that's Lego Horizon Adventures. Unimpressive, I'll say that's Indiana Jones. However, there's one other ace under the sleeve, and that's something that I strongly believe you cannot point out yet for Indiana Jones, and that ace is it's coming to PlayStation. Again, we're going to see PlayStation fans have access to this game, and we're going to see how the game performs on the platform. Because this is going to be the PlayStation fans' time to actually outclass the Xbox players that they claim don't buy games in their purchasing power of video games. And probably we'll be able to see how the game does there. So again, I wouldn't be too quick to judge Indiana Jones based on the SteamDB numbers. I think you got to give it time so that we can see its full sale, because again, the difference between, the release and when it's going to come to PlayStation is actually pretty short. So let's leave that one hanging in the air. I'm not, convinced that it's going to sell that much. So of all the claims that were made in this comment, when you think about it, I strongly believe that this, in my opinion, is just maybe somebody that is possibly not impressed with what Xbox is doing. But to be honest, I don't think anybody cares. As a PC player, I don't think impressive is the metric that we're going for. The base metric at the end of the day for any publisher in terms of this gaming scene is games. And Xbox is doing a very good job at that. In fact, I think they're doing a stellar job in bringing games. Now, the next piece is, the games, are they going to be quality? And, it's a very good question to ask. But here's my main question in terms of all of this. With everything Xbox is doing, if for this person it's not good enough, I want to ask and say, as opposed to what? What will be, or what is the alternative right now? What is PlayStation, the alternative, actually putting on the table right now compared to what Xbox is putting on the table? And the answer to that is we don't know. We don't know what PlayStation is about to do. PlayStation's roadmap in 2025, we don't know. I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm just saying you see everything that Xbox is being able to accomplish, right? No problem. And you say, well, you don't think it's good for Xbox because you don't see the metrics, but I've shown you out of all of what you stated, right, that about 80 or 90% Xbox is actually nailing it down. What is the alternative, though? A bunch of PlayStation exclusives coming out, a bunch of games that PlayStation is actually dropping in 2025. What is the alternative? And I think that's the question that a lot of our PlayStation fans should be asking PlayStation. And I think that's the alternative that a lot of people should be talking about in the gaming industry. Or we could just focus on celebrating where we get to play games. Whether you're a PlayStation person, a PC person, or an Xbox person, we just celebrate where the games are coming from. And they're coming from Xbox, who previously, according to the critics, had no games. So the data is out here. The statistics are out here. If you're wondering till date, or you're probably going around looking and saying, well, where's Xbox actually doing good? I don't know, man. Perhaps maybe you might want to look a little harder, or perhaps maybe you just don't know yet. And that's why I made this video. Thanks for watching. Appreciate y'all so much. Peace out.